Good morning, a warm welcome to Uganda First. We hope that you are keeping safe wherever you are, for your own good, of course, and the good of your loved ones and all Ugandans. It is Thursday and the patriotism conversation is back. Thank you for loving and serving the country. That good you do for your community and country makes us all proud of you. Last Thursday, we had a spirited discussion about safeguarding public infrastructure, and indeed, viewers appreciated the discussion. Shortly, we are going to have another discussion about environment, our nature. This discussion is going to be a reminder to all of us about our role to protect and conserve the environment. A reminder that it is upon us to use resources availed by the environment sustainably so that the coming generations can equally enjoy the benefits we are enjoying today. Interest yourself in the shocking fact that each year in Uganda we lose nearly 90,000 hectares of forest cover to our cooking needs, timber for construction, opening new farming fields, making herbal medicine, name it. We are now a country that has less than 14% of forest cover, which leaves us with high levels of pollution, obviously, and I am sure that many of you are experiencing the different types of pollution already. We have energy resources in their number, including electric power, that is about 1,300 megawatts, hydropower, and the other sources combined. Can this be an alternative to wood and charcoal? How far has the rural electrification program gone? What hope is there that one day a unit of hydropower will reduce in price so that people in urban and rural areas can equally afford it? If the environment we use the resources sustainably, how far can we go in promoting tourism if we use the environment sustainably? Because tourism highly depends on landscape, of course, and wildlife. These are some of the questions on which our discussion today will be anchored, and without doubt, we have the right people to take us through this. Let me come back shortly and tell you who we have in studio.
Uganda First is brought to you by National Secretariat of Patriotism Corps, Office of the President, in partnership with NTV Uganda, for God and my country.
I welcome you once again. You know it is policy now. We speak with masks on. You know the SOPs, of course. So in studio today we have Dr. Kankwasa Barirega, the Director of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities at the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. And Engineer Protas Tibyachinura, a Chief Engineering and Technical Services Officer at Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited, UEDCL. Engineer, good to have you in studio. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to you viewers out there.
Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Frank. A very good morning to you and our viewers and listeners out there.
Yeah, we've met a number of times, of course, but not in studio.
Sure.
You know, during my survey and other things in regard to arts and culture, and we speak about tourism many times. You know, law and policy alone, I was thinking, may not be the solution. They may not be enough to push people to conserve the environment. Sometimes, or at all times, you need the people themselves. These people, starting with me, for example, you need to show me, you need to educate me that I have a connection with this environment which supports our life, if I can put it that way. But how can we achieve this really? How can we tell people that, you know what, this environment is actually, without it, you are not there? We need to start with that connection, Doctor. How can we educate people about this?
Yes, thank you, Frank. Like you've said, first of all, we must appreciate that we are part and parcel of this environment, and without it, our lives are at risk. So historically, man has lived with nature without any conflict. But of course, as you know, the proliferation of man almost overtook nature. The population of man grew super fast, but most of the natural resources, including land, water, and air, remained static. So there is a conflict. So like the topic rightly states, we need a balance, to strike a balance, and that's the sustainable development path that you are talking about. Man must know, the citizens must know that they are the custodians of this environment, they are the owners of environmental resources, and if they do not take care of these resources, they are again the first victims to suffer from the consequences. But if they take a sustainable path, they are the immediate beneficiaries. We are now talking of Covidex from a plant that we have all looked at, Wabugia ugandensis, as you know it. Mukuza nume, it's now promising to heal the world. You see, that's how nature is powerful. If we had exterminated Mukuza nume, we wouldn't be talking about Covidex now. So that's how powerful nature is. Nature gives us food, nature gives us water, nature gives us the oxygen we are breathing. True. If you look at the discussion on oxygen now in hospitals,
very deep, sad stories coming
very
out.
deep. Now this discussion is coming because our lungs are still breathing normally, true, but because of COVID, there is a problem with oxygen quality for those who have impaired lungs. Now, assuming the discussion changes now to poor quality in the whole of the environment, you have your proper lungs, your lungs are okay, but the natural oxygen to breathe is not there. The discussion will be even much more deep than we are talking now. So our lives are intertwined with nature, and we rely on nature. So it is our responsibility as citizens to protect nature, because by protecting nature, we are actually protecting our own selves. Nature has nothing to lose if we do not behave. We have everything to lose if we misbehave towards nature.
I hear you. Engineer, this is very, very crucial in your entity, energy. I am thinking you have a program in line with this, nature conservation.
Thank you very much, Frank. Good morning to our viewers once again. Of course, I come from the energy sector, specifically to do with electricity supply in the country. Now, there is always a conflict, of course, on how do you balance your energy resources, energy requirements, and also try to conserve the environment. That's a conflict that we grapple with, to sort out. But for this morning's discussion, I want to address myself to the role of energy in conservation of nature, environmental conservation, the role of energy in sustainable development, as you have talked about in our topic. And I want to align my discussion to various programs that exist at the national level today that government has put forward towards energy, and of course not losing sight of conservation of the environment, and also trying to bring in the citizens' role, the way they have to participate in all this. We have the Vision 2040 that is well known to us now, that highlights energy as the driver of development. And for a simple definition, development is a mental change in society. It always has something to do with growth, expansion, increase in production and everything. And if you want to make it sustainable, sustainable is a qualification that shows that this development you are doing will live beyond the generations, across the generations. And therefore, government has plans specifically in energy sector that are supposed to achieve that, to achieve development, but that is sustainable. And away from the Vision 2040, we are now running, we have just run 1 year into the National Development Plan 3, NDP 3, and that one has emphasized the need of energy, that it will be the key driver of development. The goal of this plan talks about increasing household incomes, and increased life of Ugandans, cost of living for Ugandans. And the main theme is looking at increasing energy access with objectives of increasing access and increasing per capita electricity consumption. Now, per capita electricity consumption is an index that tells you in a country, if you get all the energy consumed and divided by the total population, it is always normally not fair that even the one who doesn't use electricity, we try to show that he uses it.
It's included in the statistics.
Yes, in the statistics. But try to show that, and that index always shows you the level of development of a country that has the lowest. And you would be shocked to know that for Uganda, the last time it was done, it was in the range of 120 kilowatt hours, units of electricity.
That is per
capita energy consumption in Uganda. If you get all
that is
the
120 kWh
per year. Yes. If you get all the energy consumed in Uganda, divide it by the total population, you find that each Ugandan is consuming in the region of 120 kilowatt hours. Now, that index is not good.
Not at all.
Not at all. It tells a lot about the development we have. So that's why government is driving the effort of increasing access, increasing per capita energy consumption in the country, and make sure that this power is available. When that is done, we know that will drive industrialization, which is agenda number 1 for government, because it is only industrialization that will deliver Uganda from a peasant society into a modern country that has people that have a better life of living. Now, these programs are all running, and they are aimed at making sure that energy plays its role in driving the government programs of sustainably developing this country. If you look at all these, the expectation is that once you have increased access, another statistics that I can give to you that may shock you is that in Uganda now electricity access stands at 26%.
I wanted you to say that first. Sometimes
Yes.
they tend to say the TV people are
No.
conversation.
Electricity access,
26.
I must
true.
say that government has done great. A few years ago, it was standing at 8%,
I know.
10%. But in the last 10 years or so, electricity access has grown up to 26%. Not good enough still.
26, that is the whole picture now, countrywide. But,
Countrywide.
Urban and rural, what is the stand now? Where are we? Urban, I know urban is
of course,
is a little higher.
urban is higher. Urban you can
Last time it was at 60. It stood at 60.
yes, I think it has grown into the region of 70.
Okay.
But rural, we are still not doing well. But a lot is being done. And in the development plan 3 that we are talking about now, all that has been emphasized. I must say that a lot of investment has already been done by government in the last 5-7 years. But that most of this investment has been towards the source, the generation side. Now, where we are, we have power generation capacity in Uganda that is available, but the investments now are supposed to be put towards distribution and transmission so that we increase the penetration into the rural community, so that we can increase these indices that are not looking very good.
You know, the conversation about conserving nature has been on for so long. Yesterday I was speaking to people, of course, and they brought out the same concern that is said quite often. That you see, you're telling us, to conserve, not to use charcoal, not to use firewood, or use it sustainably. But what is the provision? We don't see the electricity, the gas. I think people who use gas are like 1%. And I was thinking to myself, so when is this rural electrification program going to materialize? I know, is it by 2022? It should be, somewhere. We should have achieved something.
In the vision 2040, that is 30 years, government plans to achieve 90%, over 90% electrification of the country. By the way, just to tell you, that I think there are a few countries in the world that are 100%. So if we can achieve 90, that will be great. So the target is 90% electrification within the next 30 years. And all plans now are geared towards that. But also to the, Frank and viewers, I want us also to look into this other area. That even when government increases electrification rate, that means access increases. We have observed that you can achieve that access increase, but with zero connectivity.
It is true, yes.
That you achieve low connectivity. And that is not good also. Because when you increase access, you need to increase connectivity, and therefore you drive the other index I started with, per capita energy consumption.
Connectivity to happen, you have to reduce the price of...
Yes, you have to reduce, or government has measures, like you have heard, government has done well in that area. You must have heard of the ECP policy, electricity connection policy, which was launched around 1.5 years ago, where all customers now are supposed to be connected free for as long as the grid has reached within your vicinity. Government has put arrangements to connect customers free. This is aimed at driving the numbers of customers. And that will also bring down the cost of electricity. If I don't want to go into the tariff, it's not for discussion. But why people talk about electricity, that it is high, the cost is high, is because even where power has reached, now you're talking about, it's about 2 million people. We are struggling to have 2 million connections in Uganda. Combining UMEME, UEDCR and all, we are not at 2 million customer connections. Now that means, or the energy that is consumed, if you get it and then you divide it by the number of customers that are using it, that's where your tariff is high. The only way to drive the tariff low is to increase connectivity, bring as many people on the network as possible so that you have a bigger volume of people consuming electricity in bulk. And then all these distribution, operation, maintenance costs are shared, and then the costs will come down. So government, it's in the development plans here again, aiming at increasing access, increasing the per capita energy consumption, and increasing connections. And that's why some drives have been made, like that free connection policy, which is in place, and I'm sure in the next 5 years, we should be able to see a very big change.
I am worried for you, Dr. Kamkwasa, Vision 2040.
Yes.
That is when they think maybe 80 to 90% or even more than that will be connected. But by that time, will you have any forest to bring tourists to? I don't know.
If we continue at the rate at which we are, we shall not have the forests. But if you realize in the recent past, there is a slight positive change. 1990 forest cover was around 24%. It dived and dipped to 9.5% in 2017. There is now a positive growth. We are at 12.5 thereabout. So as he has said, as we increase connection to renewable, sustainable energy like hydropower, reliance on biomass will reduce. But also we must match the demand for energy, biomass energy, by planting more trees. Because I was looking at the energy mix now, biomass is still lingering around, biomass usage is still lingering around 90% of the energy mix. Firewood still taking almost 78%, and charcoal taking around 5%. Electricity is around 1.4% or thereabout of the energy mix. So as he rightly puts it, the situation is not good, but we must match the situation. And the government has put in place mechanisms to address that. I was looking at the National Development Plan. Government has a program, like he was saying, free electricity connection, but there is also proposed plan to remove import duties, for example, on gas appliances and gas itself, and then electricity appliances, so that we promote movement of people from relying on biomass energy to sustainable energy. God gave us a lot of sunshine, so we can actually harvest solar energy
is almost untapped as we speak.
Yeah, for us in the tourism industry, we actually encourage renewable energy sources. If you look at the lodges and hotels, majority of them in rural areas where power has not reached, they are using solar energy. And we encourage it because that's really greening the economy. Government has a program to green the economy. Hydropower access will definitely play a significant role in greening the economy because people will move to clean energy. But as my brother advances on electricity, they should also focus a lot on enhancing usage of solar energy because we have it in plenty, and I think the initial cost of investment is definitely high, but if you look at the long-term picture, it is even cheaper and more sustainable, of course, than relying on biomass.
Okay. But in the Ministry of Tourism, do you have a program to engage people about conservation?
Oh, yes,
you can
yes.
tell us about it.
Yeah, we have conservation is domiciled in the ministry, as you have rightly put it. The ministry is in charge of conservation of museums and monuments, as well as wildlife conservation. So in other words, we are talking of natural and cultural heritage conservation. Now we have various policies that promote conservation, the most prominent one of which is wildlife conservation. As you know, we partner with the citizens at the protected area management level by sharing revenue with them. For every penny that government makes from tourism, the citizens get direct access to 20% of that revenue. Now the 80% is also, of course, for the citizens, but they access it indirectly through infrastructure like electricity, like roads, like health, because it goes into the central pool. But 20% is retained at the local level at the communities neighboring these protected areas as an incentive to make them realize that actually if you conserve nature, there is a direct benefit.
How does this 20% come? Does it come in form of public good for all the communities? How does it come?
It comes as cash. For example, assuming Bwindi Impenetrable National Park has made 100 million US dollars. You get 20% of that, you give it to the communities, the people living in the parishes around that protected area.
Cash
you
handouts?
remit cash to the local government. The local government works with the local communities to identify projects that they want for their economic empowerment, and then that money is released through the local government to fund the projects identified and decided by the local people themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a cash kind of handout. It is a sustainable way of community empowerment and community development. But that's not enough. In addition to sharing revenue, tourism provides jobs to these people. It is the sons and daughters of the wananchi that work in these national parks, that guide tourists, that run tour companies, that run hotels. So 8% of Uganda's employment is actually provided by the tourism industry. And in addition to employment, there is foreign exchange for the country. Without foreign exchange, we cannot do most of the things that the government does. We can't do roads because we pay in dollars. We can't do electricity because these dams, I'm sure the Chinese or these constructors are paying in dollars.
Sure.
So if there is no tourism, you don't have foreign exchange, because tourism prior to COVID-19 pandemic, tourism was the largest or the highest foreign exchange earner for Uganda, generating about 1.6 billion US dollars annually. Now, it is this money that helps government to do infrastructure facilities, as well as providing social services like health. For example, we're talking of importing oxygen plants. These are imported in dollars. It is tourism that brings these dollars. So we do educate the people to conserve through demonstrating direct benefits, as well as raising their awareness through educating them about the value of natural resources, how natural resources contribute to our climate amelioration, how natural resources contribute to control of flooding, how our natural resources contribute to discovery of medicines, for example, how our natural resources contribute to control of floods and drought, you know, and of course, food, provision of food. If I can give you an example, our country, our economy is largely still agrarian. Agriculture is still the main employer of our citizens. But if we removed just one element from nature called pollination, if we removed the bees that you have grown up knowing,
we would have no agriculture.
Agriculture would collapse. So we must continuously tell the people that the things which we take for granted actually do matter. And for as long as we do not protect them, we have no future.
I've seen people burning beehives, forgetting there is something called colonial collapse disorder.
Yeah.
Bees can choose to leave the whole parish and
go
somewhere else.
Your gardens will stop yielding.
You have no harvest.
You will start asking yourself, is this bewitching or what? When it is a small thing that you did to nature.
In your submission, I am thinking you have to partner with the Ministry of Environment.
We are partners, as you know. We work very closely. We have in government what we call the principle of one government. We work as one government. National Forestry Authority, Uganda Wildlife Authority, National Environment Management Authority, they work together. So we work as a team already. For us, it is one government approach.
Thank you. Yesterday, I told you earlier, we spoke to a few people around Kampala, Busega to be precise, and we wanted to hear what they know about this whole topic of energy, sustainable development and the environment. And indeed, they have ideas. They have good ideas that if put into practice, or if enforced, if I could say, I think we would be able to preserve, to conserve. Let's hear them.
Tulina okujumbira okusimba emiti okuma obutonde bw'ensi kuba emiti gituyamba nnyo. Giyambako okusika ku nkuba, obutonde bw'ensi ekirala ekisinza obutto obuveera. Ku siteegi wano abantu abamu batera obukuŋŋaanyiza awamu oba mu kiveera kati bana bakuŋŋaanya kasasiro oba bannabugabo ne babutwala. N'oluusi abamu ate babusula we basanze nga tebabisaasaanya buli wamu. Singa etteeka liba ly'amaanyi tugibasanga akasuula walabye enga si bwe toba tumusiba ebbanga bwe liti. Kuba gavumenti nejjumbira okugebera abantu emiti ng'egyo musimbe ekibeera oba kya tteeka. Toba oli wabeera n'ettaka nga tekuli muti gwasimbye nga ye ne bakiteekako obuvunaanyizibwa.
Kati ngeno paka ogiraba weeri bwali lutobazi kiraba ebyo ebyuma we biri lutobazi. Singa gavumenti etondawo emirimu egy'enjawulo, kuba omuntu agenda mu kibiira n'atema emiti oba enku oba agenda kwokya manda naye aba anoonya ki kawogo. Naye singa gavumenti eba etonzeewo emirimu nga zisobola ofevalinga obutonde bw'ensi obwo, nze sijja genda mu kibiira kutema miti kuba n'ebyo ebibira bye mulaba mubiraba ku mabbali. Eyo munda yennyini aba forest be bakolagana n'abatema amanda ne bagabatemera ne bagaleeta e Kampala. Tusobola okukozesa engeri endala bino ebikuta by'amatooke babikaza ne babikolamu amanda.
Kati bwe baŋŋamba okukozesa amasannyalaze bagasse unit ebeere ku siringi nga 2 oba kala 5. Okiwulira? Awo mmanya nti nusu 2 bisobola okufumba emmere ne caayi. Naye kati bagamba nti unit eri mu nusu 10 ng'ogula amasannyalaze ga 15,000 gasooka ng'ogenda otandika omwezi 15,000. Sitegeeza nga tegagenda malako na mwezi, sitegeeza basookera batereze ekyamasannyalaze balyoke batugambe nti temuddamu kutema miti unit eri ku nusu 5. Wakati nganzo omufuna mpola sobola genda mu kyalo n'entema fayita y'amanda n'engireeta esobola okulemera ku poliisi ekammengo nga mbadde njja Masaka. Naye ate ey'omunene omu gavumenti esobola okuva Embalala n'ejja paka Kampala.
Obutonde bw'ensi abantu abamu abeefuula abagezi nga si bagezi bubumalawo lwa nsonga bamazeewo bukimu bakola ki balundirako nte. Naye ate enze omuntu wa wansi okinyigira kubanga nyinawe nateeka gadeni yange y'emiti ne baginyigobesaawo. Abula omuntu yenna oba mugagga oba mwavu ekitoogo bakireke kibeerewo. Obutonde bw'ensi lwaki babumalawo?
Ekisinza okutta obutonde bw'ensi be bagagga kubanga abagagga be bagula ebisenyi. Era wano e Bulenga bagamba nti Abachina be baguzeewo era basobola okusengulawo abantu baveewo basobola okukolerawo kye baagala. Tewali mwavu asse obutonde bwansi okujjako omugagga yekka alina ssente be basse obutonde bw'ensi.
Kati nga wali ku paaka y'Emityana baali bagigadde nga bataddewo ekyuma, naye olw'okuba enguzi eri mu ggwanga lyaffe muno mu Uganda bawaayo ssente ne baddawo. Ne ku paaka wali eri ey'Ebweyogerere bawaayo ssente ne bagenda ne batemawo ekyuma paaka neddawo ne batandika okuddamu okubanga bakola.
Waliwo amakyaki abantu waliwo abali basulawe naye omugo gwali wano ogumanyi gwe bakuba abasajja embooko bamenyamenya amayumba g'abantu kitegeera. Twalikola waitawo wiki ng'emu ekizimbe ne kirikusituka basologera ne bazimba nga si mu ntobazi, ne bazimba nga si mu ntobazi, entobazi bazirekeze yagala.
Okuba nze siyinza kuva wano ne ngenda ne nzimba mu lutobazi ne banzikiriza era oba oli awo nga bakamenye kitegeeza abazimbayo be bano twakolamu. Kati ate bumujjako buno obutonde bw'ensi kitegeeza n'ebisolo by'omu nsiko muba mubikoze eki mubitataganyizza nnyo okukola ki okusinga okubeerayo bijja kudda mu bantu ate bitandika okukola ki.
All right, some of the people we spoke to, I think 90% of them live and work within Busega, Busega. It's one of those areas that has a very important environment. There is
wetland.
There is a wetland there, you know it.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the vital ones that we have. So you can hear, they really have an idea how we can be able to conserve the environment. But the problem they're pointing at mostly is people who are, you understood the term kawoga bakolam?
Yeah.
Yes, the
people want
yes.
daily bread, people want alternatives, but also people want the will to do in society to behave. Exactly. I listened very carefully.
They're the ones contributing to
everything they said is entirely correct. It is entirely correct. And like the discussion for today, they have a significant role as citizens to play, to contribute towards what they are saying. Government has a role. For example, creation of alternative jobs, creation of affordable alternative sources of energy, like they are saying. And government, like my colleague said, has put in place programs to make alternative sources of energy more affordable, also to create better jobs than relying on nature, because we need to create industrialization to move people away from direct dependence on nature to depending on alternative jobs, like he was exactly saying that they need jobs to get out of charcoal burning. And that's exactly what government is doing through attraction of investors, through promotion of tourism, to create jobs, through promotion of agriculture, to promote alternative jobs that do not directly depend on destruction of nature. Now, the citizens have an additional role which they should do. They raise the issues, for example, of big people coming and destroying nature.
The wealthy ones.
The wealthy ones. One, the citizens can play a role to address that in 3 ways. One, by contributing to themselves practicing best environmental practices. Why should you drop a cavera anywhere? Why should you be riding your bike and after eating maize you throw the rubbish? You've seen buses moving on the main road. People eat meat, after buses, eating meat they throw, even private cars, after eating meat they throw things out of the car to the road. The citizens can do much more than observing and crying. One, by not doing it themselves, because they are part of the people who move in these cars, they are part of us. But two, vigilance. If you see somebody just dropping a cavera from his car after eating maize, if you have an ability, you can arrest that person as a citizen. Under the law, the citizens are empowered under Criminal Procedure Code, Section 16. Citizens can actually arrest someone who is believed to be committing a cognizable offense. A cognizable offense is an offense that is visible, that you can see, with a penalty of 1 year and above. Now, most of the pollution-related cases go up to 15 years in jail, so they are all cognizable offenses, meaning that me and you, Frank, can arrest anybody found distributing waste irresponsibly. 2, anybody can arrest somebody destroying a wetland if there is evidence that that person has not been authorized. And most of the time, these people are not authorized because NEMA cannot authorize somebody to go and destroy a wetland. So the citizens have a right actually to arrest these people and take them to police. Where they cannot arrest because not all the time they may have that capability or zero will, they can volunteer this information to government enforcement agencies. They can bring this information to NEMA. So citizens can play a role actually by reporting the wrongdoers.
I think we still have environment
police. There is environmental police, yes. It is there. We have environmental police, but even regular police can enforce.
Get their hotline.
The hotline for environmental police.
We should get it one day and give it out.
Yeah, sure.
All right, engineer, you have any supplement on to?
Yes, Frank and viewers, I have watched a clip of these citizens, and one of the persons there has contributed to the topic or to the agenda that this program is about. He says, "Basoke bya masanyarazi."
Exactly.
I entirely think that is a brilliant idea. This program is about Uganda first. I think it is Uganda first, then after that electricity first. And government appreciates that fact, and that's why electricity is going to be the driver. All the ideas that people have talked about here, and all the ideas that Doctor is talking about, will not happen if electricity access is not increased, availability is not there, and affordability is not addressed, so that per capita energy consumption goes up. The gentleman talked about using banana peelings to make charcoal. All these are good projects. Recycling of all these things that are destroying the environment are good projects. But for any investor to invest in those recycling plants, when they are doing their feasibility studies, the issues of electricity access, electricity availability, reliability must come into play. And when the feasibility study points to the fact that it is either not available or not reliable, the projects will not take place. So, and I want to say that Uganda is doing a lot. I come from an organization that has, we are government, of course. I also want to say that electricity investments are very expensive, that it can only be government that can make meaningful investments. Supply of electricity.
Government and private partners?
Private partnership, yes, we have tried it, I think, for the last 15 years. That's how you see the babies are in. We have not attracted, apart from the generators, independent hydro generators, we don't have many in the distribution and transmission sector that have come to do it. I want to still say that government will still play the biggest role in that. UEDCL operates now in the rural areas. Periphery, we are operating in 65 districts of Uganda that Umeme does not reach. There is no private player that is likely to go to distribute power at Elegu, at the border, or in the hills of Chisoro, where the citizens of this country are consuming 2 units or 4 units in a month. Actually, when it is a moon season, the electricity is not used.
Security lights.
Security lights is the moon. So, but it's government.
So who collects, who sells power that side?
It is my organization, the one I work for, not my organization, but a government company called Uganda Electricity Distribution Company. We are operating in 65 districts of Uganda, and we have about 44 offices located in those rural areas. I must tell you that business is not profitable in those areas. You have huge lines extended there, but the collection rates are very low, and we are striving hard to make sure that we increase connections. In the last 3-4 years, we have been able to collect about 93. We are going to 100,000. Now, frankly, you will say that is a small number, but if you understand the areas I'm talking about, you know that that is a very hard work that you have put in to get close to 100,000 customers connected. All over those areas. And as a result, this government company employs about 380 employees.
In those 65?
In those 65 districts,
okay.
in those areas. So government has employed people who are distributing this electricity there. And it is a plus, because sustainable development, it must come with inclusive growth, inclusive employment creation, and revenues to the families, and people must be employed. Now, when we are doing that, you find there are challenges. Of course, the clip you had was in the city. Mm-hmm. When you go up country, these challenges may not be very well pronounced. This is mainly the miaras which are being blocked, the Ntobazis where the Bagaga are coming and occupying. This is there. The other side, our lines go through the bushes, through people's farms, and these lines have been done to facilitate development and growth. That's what government is trying to do now. Can you take power to those areas so that you shift? What we have just watched here is the pressure that the urban areas are experiencing because of the amenities that are in that area. The idea of government now is that you take power to the rural areas so that these attract industrialization.
To go back to,
because industrialization is going to be the driver. Attract industrialization in those areas. Create the jobs in those areas. Like we are employing 380 employees, but they are in Chisoro, in Bundubujo, in Eregu, Pabo, all over these places. None of them are living in Masaka. We have those guys working there. But even to say, the employment creation we are talking about, I think there is much more which I think also government is trying to address now. And as UDC, we are trying to do it. You would be shocked that people are on the streets saying there is no job, there are no jobs. But we are also, there are certain areas that we don't have enough resources in terms of human capital. So there is more need for training, especially in the technical areas. Long time ago when I was growing, I used to hear very many technical colleges that would produce technicians, electricians, and all this. And in the past few years, those seem to have not been overemphasized, and we all went for the first-class degree. Now, what is happening? The real people that we want to do the work, at times you throw out there, and you don't get there. So, alignment of education, alignment of skills in the country, so that the citizens can ably participate in the development programs that you have, is something that has to be addressed, I think, from this point of view. Having said that, I want to also to show you that citizens have a role to play in this. As government plans all these projects and does them, the citizen participation is crucial. Government can do all this, but if the citizenry are not in there, it is always in vain. There is a saying that governments or countries are as good as their citizens. What you get at the national level is actually what your citizens are. That's why I emphasize skilling and training, making sure that all those are aligned to the government programs that you have put in your development plans to achieve it. In the sector, all these lines that we talked about, the government is aiming at having 90 electrification rate, and lines are going. But what are the challenges that we are getting out? Which is a core that we would want to make maybe the citizenry participation. You get cases like around 5 years ago, there was a big project called CAIP, Community Agriculture Infrastructure Improvement Program. CAIP. This is where in all these areas the government was zoned, and each area government identified what are some of the things that they are good at. They produce rice, yes. This year it is maize, yes. Here it is cotton, it's coffee, and government got money and invested in establishing milk coolers in those areas, coffee houses. These agro-processing plants were put, and of course energy came in. All these have to be given power. You can't even do those without power. So all these were done, and the power was taken there. But you see now who would run them. The communities were organized. Now these are the citizens to make sure that they take these projects forward. Now it has started operating. This milling machine has started. And then they are organized in smaller community organizations, like cooperatives. But I think government should have gone back to do the post-project evaluation and monitoring to see how they're working. But what we see from the energy sector, we're having challenges. The committees that were put there, those cooperatives, I think have not run them well. They attempt to do funny things with the investment.
Yeah.
Electricity is not paid. So before you know it, then it is switched off because we are doing prepayment metering system. Now in government, all customer consumption is on prepaid meter system. When it switches off, now they say, this project was done by government. You understand? Not the citizens to understand that they need to run this as their own. It has been put for them so that their rice, their coffee, their everything is processed. But the few people who are running it are not doing it right. That's how, for the project to be sustainable, as I started by defining sustainability of projects, the citizenry must embrace it. Another last one example is this line that we have taken. Currently we are faced with a huge problem of vandalism. Lines that have been taken.
Yes, I was going to come to that after the break. Maybe let's take a break first and then we'll come back to vandalism. You're watching Uganda First, brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Clubs. Let's take a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back to Uganda First. My name is Frank Simbi in studio. I am with Engineer Protaz Tibyachinura and Dr. Kankwasa Barirega from the Ministry of Tourism. We're looking at energy, sustainable development and environment. What's the citizen's role? What is your role? We've had at least a bigger part of the conversation, those who started with us. And ideas are coming out very, very well. We by now understand what our role is. Let's take a look at some of the messages that have come through WhatsApp, that number that we're displaying on screen. All right, how many Yaka, how come Yaka application is so expensive? 700K plus even plus, and even then, it's not a guarantee that one gets it. It would have served us better if you told us where you are. What people should know is that when we disturb the environment, we are intentionally jeopardizing the future of this planet. Let government focus more on sensitization and putting harsh penalties for wrongdoers. Emmanuel in Imperewe. Now you tackle the issue of environment without the public mindset. The relevant ministries lack the potential political and economic, social and academic element in relation to the environment issues. The alternative fuel solution is too expensive. Talk about gas, cookers, taxes, ghost investor to mention but a few. Or can we streamline the environmental impact assessment independently? Roger, where are you? You're saying we appreciate you for the presentation, especially on the right timing as the new financial year has just begun. Okay, let's continue to sensitize our communities. Thank you. Let them make electricity affordable. Yeah, that will come so many times. Engineer Protaz. Asim Andrew Kagumire from Rubirizi. Katerera. Okay. It will be difficult to achieve the 2040 goal of 90% rural electrification program if Ugandans are being sold electricity at prices per unit as if it is imported from other countries. Price is high. Attention to Engineer Tibyachinura. Our village in Mugusu Town Council, Kabarore. The electricity poles and wires were put, but it is now 2 years without electricity. My parents cannot use the power, and we had to improvise using solar lighting. How can rural electrification improve on the efficiency? When will the current flow in? This has taken too long. Samuel Kazova. There are places with poles without wires. Okay. Derek Mramzi, Makerere University, may the Almighty bless the works and efforts of Dr. Kankwasa towards wildlife. He's wishing you well. Government should at least lower the amount per unit. Yaka bills. All right, bring like how many? Finish? 2 more. All right, this is repeating. It is repeating. Okay, Doctor and Engineer, do you have any reactions to the thoughts that are coming in through WhatsApp?
Yes, if you look at what
about,
they are advising, we need to sensitize the people, we need to continue sensitizing the people.
Yes.
We do agree. This is a continuous process. Minds of people keep changing, as you know, as we say in religion, that every Sunday people are told what they were told many times back, because the human nature is that a person must be continuously reminded. So, as you know, as a ministry, we have a dedicated agency for conservation, education and awareness called the UWEC, Uganda Wildlife Conservation, Education and Awareness, whose role is really to continuously educate the people about the need to conserve. And they do this through targeting the young generation through wildlife clubs. You must have heard about wildlife clubs movement, where we want really to build a future of citizenry that is aware of the conservation issues. They talked of need for harsh penalties. This is very true. We need to strengthen law enforcement and prosecution. In wildlife conservation, if you may know, Parliament enacted Uganda Wildlife Act 2019 with one harshest penalties that you can ever have. Poaching an endangered species now can lead you to maximum life sentence in prison or a fine of 20 billion. So government has already addressed the issue of penalties, like I told you. The National Environment Act 2019 also has introduced very harsh penalties. You can get up to 15 years in jail for polluting the environment.
Just a reminder, were those people arrested for killing the lions prosecuted and sentenced?
Yes, the prosecution is still going on.
It's ongoing?
Yeah, the case is not yet concluded. Okay. But we have, you know, the person who killed the gorilla, they got up to 12 years. Recently, we got another 12-year sentence. So the law is already actually working. The harsh penalties are already being given. Government has already done its work of putting in place
How about people
laws.
encroaching on game reserve land? How are you handling that?
Those ones, actually, if you look at the loss of forestry, much of it is outside the protected areas. We've dealt with the issue of encroachment. We have very few cases of encroachment on protected areas. It's still a challenge, but a very minor one. Most of the protected area boundaries are intact. The biggest problem of encroachment, I think, is on forest reserves, central forest reserves, because of lack of effective enforcement mechanisms. We need to empower NFA with an enforcement mechanisms, or NEMA, by strengthening the environmental police and the creation of environmental protection service as envisaged in the new law. Okay. So the enforcement is a big issue. Public mindset change, yes, we agree. Creation of alternatives, cheap electricity, we've talked about all this, so we do agree. Streamlining environmental impact assessment is a very important thing. Currently, the developer is the one who pays for the studies on environmental impact assessment. Now, it's very difficult that I will give you a job, Frank, and then you disappoint me. So we need to address conflict there. The developers should deposit the money somewhere to a neutral party like NEMA, and then NEMA or another neutral body should be the one to pay or recruit the environmental practitioners. So that's investigating staff. Yes, as you know, whenever staff or government people are involved in abetting crime, they are dealt with as required by law. So we agree with the views raised by the citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Kankwasa. Lastly, Engineer Protas. I think let's go to vandalism in about 2 minutes, and then we call it a day.
Thank you very much.
You are trying to build on the point before we went into a break.
Yes, sir. I was trying to call on the citizens of this country that as government treats Uganda first, let's as citizens also join in and try to treat Uganda first. The issue of vandalism is a serious subject that we want to discuss, which is affecting sustainable development of this country. It started, you remember, Uganda Railways, almost all the assets that were out there are no more.
The railway is missing.
The railway, the railway is missing. Well, one would argue and say the trains were not there. But Frank and viewers, it is shocking that the investments that are being put out there today are being vandalized even before the lines are energized, before power is connected to the lines. And our study shows that people who are vandalizing these lines are not coming from across borders. It is not that people come from Kenya, Rwanda, or Tanzania, or where. It is us, Ugandans, that are vandalizing these lines. They are taking over all the conductors, taking all the transformers that you put out there. So we call upon the citizens of the country that once government has put in this money and invested in these projects, they are yours as a citizen. They are yours. First of all, the money is your money. If it is a loan, you are paying it with me. But even before going into paying, the service is for you. Let nobody take these things out.
You are taxed for that service to be in place.
Yes, you are taxed for service.
Vandalized, government comes back to tax you again and put back the
and you don't get the service
infrastructure
that you get from. So that's why it is really a big call to Ugandans that that the vigilance that we are talking about should be from you. Of course, we are doing our best, but communities, if anybody is trying to touch these investments, to the extent that even big substations here in Kampala, if you look at big substations like Mutunwe or Gogo, these big ones, people come and dig around there. There is copper that is normally put around it, and they take it. And this cannot generate projects that are sustainable in developing the country.
All right. Thank you. Let's leave it at that. Next time, if the same topic comes up, we'll still have the discussion. Engineer Protas Tibyachinura from UEDCL, thank you. Dr. Kankwasa Barirega, Director Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities from the Ministry of Tourism, thank you for coming on the show. Be patriotic, continue to be patriotic, create a connection between you and the environment. If that connection comes, that is the only way you will start to appreciate that it is important to protect and conserve the environment. See you again next Thursday, 11 a.m. up to noon. My name is Frank Walistin. Have a good morning.